Hello and welcome to another Doctor Who Big Finish video. In today's Doctor Who Big Finish video I'll be looking at another monthly range story, which is the Emissary of the Daleks. Yes, the second story in the 6th Doctor and Perry trilogy for this year. I have reviewed the first story, Memories of a Tyrant, which I'll leave a link in the description below and a little tab thing there so you can check out that review if you want to know my thoughts on the first story within this trilogy. Now, Emissary of the Daleks joins a long line of 6th Doctor and Dalek stories, so you know, the Apocalypse Element, Jubilee, the Juggernauts, Brotherhood of the Daleks, Masters of Earth. We have, Order of the Daleks, to name but a few 6th Doctor Dalek stories. I know I've probably missed a few, but those are the prime examples. We've had quite a few 6th Doctor Dalek stories, so we'll see whether Emissary of the Daleks is able to stand on its own, or will it just blend into the pile of Big Finish 6th Doctor Dalek stories. So let's look at the presentation for Emissary of the Daleks. So taking a look at the presentation for Emissary of the Daleks, and I have to say I absolutely love this cover. It's just very visually striking. So we've got the Overcity there, this sort of metropolis. Then we've got the Supreme Dalek, which is just the star of the show in my opinion. We've got Perry, the 6th Doctor, holding some Vitanium. Then we've got a Danger Vitanium mining. Then we've got some Daleks on the hoverbout, and a little hoverbout there, Emissary of the Daleks by Andrew Smith. The side of the release. And the back of the release. If you want to know more about the story, then do feel free to pause. And we have the cast list and the total running time being 120 minutes. And the disc art is exactly the same for both discs. So Emissary of the Daleks has been a release that has excited me ever since it was announced in Doctor Who magazine that Perry would be returning to the main range. And Andrew Smith writing it, and after the triumph of Hour of the Cybermen, I was definitely intrigued to see what Andrew Smith would do with those beloved pepper pots. And even Big Finish themselves admit that they wanted to replicate the success what Hour of the Cybermen brought. So did lightning strike twice? Answer, yes. This is a brilliant story. This story really reminding me of the Dalek Occupation of Winter, which is another solid Dalek story. So if you haven't checked out that story, then please do, because it is another really good story. What I personally love about this story is that it isn't your typical Dalek occupation story, as Andrew Smith said that he wanted to base it off this, a tactic of the Persian Empire, that they would conquer a territory and then put an emissary leader in place to rule it, and the population would be treated relatively well on the condition that there were no attempts of rebellion. And if there was a rebellion, the Persians would return and be totally merciless, and not just quell the rebellion, they would take cruel revenge on the population. Now this idea just suits the Daleks incredibly well. Part 1, so we start off with this lovely scene between the Doctor and Perry wandering around talking about stars, which leads us to learn how isolated and lonely the planet Omnia is. So you already know that the population is helpless, leading to a brilliant scene when the Doctor and Perry encounter Gordus, who manages the graveyard, as there are thousands of graves on this planet, all with no inscriptions. This leads to some excellent world building, as the Daleks have wiped the planet's history completely clean, making reading and writing completely forbidden. So we get a glimpse of the Dalek invasion, with 15,000 Omnians being wiped out in 8 seconds. So you already know that the Daleks mean business. So continuing with this world building, we have this worn down derelict undercity where the workers live, and then above it we have this overcity, this metropolis of skyscrapers on stilts, which the masters and the very fortunate live. So I just think that's a really wonderful visual idea, and just creates a wonderful image in your head with this kind of really derelict, worn down city underneath, and then you have this really, grand metropolis of skyscrapers above it. It just screams 1960s Doctor Who to me. Now the atmosphere for this story is brilliant, as it genuinely feels not very welcoming, which fits the story as visitors are forbidden on Omnia. And the planet feels very hostile, which leads to a great action sequence of the Doctor and Perry being pursued by the Watch with guns, what can kill, stun or burn. So we're introduced to a band of people who want to start resistance, and the ringleader Aldo has found something in the Forbidden Quarantine, what might ignite the flame of resistance. And the story does raise some interesting questions. How does Aldo link to the Overcity, and what are the Daleks up to on this planet, and what purpose do they have with the Omnians? The cliffhanger isn't the cliffhanger you would expect in a traditional Dalek reveal. The cliffhanger you would expect is, the Dalek reveal like, oh my god, Daleks are here. But no, the cliffhanger isn't that, which is a rather nice little surprise. But the cliffhanger still retained that classic Who feel, which is very nice. Part 2, so we have a rather bleak resolution to the cliffhanger, with the Daleks interrogating the Doctor and the Daleks now searching for Perry and the TARDIS, with us getting a great scene between the Doctor and Carmen Rager, the Dalek emissary. So we learn of her backstory and how she came to be working for the Daleks, and how they manipulated her by putting her on a slave world and said, look, if you fail to keep Omnia in line, then this will happen to Omnia. So it just shows that the Daleks are really manipulative within this story, which is brilliant. But the Doctor has a really powerful moment between Carmen Rager when he says, look, your planet has a serious problem with resistance, and Carmen Rager's like, what's that then? Where are they? He's like, you're looking at him. And I just think that's a really brilliant moment for the Sixth Doctor going, look, I'm going to sort this out and there's nothing you can do about it, which I think is just a really good moment within this story. So while this is all happening, Peri and Aldo get in league with people wanting to start resisting against the Daleks. But it's not the resistance you would think, as we have some people reciting from a book of the history of Omnia. So that's really going to help stop the Daleks, us reciting the knowledge and the history of Omnia. Yeah, that's really going to make the Daleks annoyed, isn't it? So the story continues to expand on Omnia and us learning more about the Omnian Empire before the Daleks, with questions being raised, who are these truth speakers and what experiments are the Daleks doing, and why are there strange Daleks down the mine? So who knows, character options may produce an Omnia mine Dalek, which would be lovely. I'd absolutely like that. Why do the Daleks need Vitanium? But this part also has an absolutely brutal moment of the Daleks massacring people. So the Dalek massacre really shows that despite only being a few Daleks on the planet lives in constant fear and constantly on the edge. And I love this part when the Supreme Dalek arrives. It just feels incredibly grand with the entrance. The Daleks descend from the hoverbouts, and the cliffhanger is just very traditional Doctor Who cliffhanger. Part 3. Now Part 3 has an action-packed start to the episode as we expand more on Vitanium and Dalek technology, as we learn that each plunger is basically like a fingerprint, which I think is a really nice little bit of detail, which I'm sure has been referenced in other Doctor Who stories, but for the life of me I can't remember. If not, then Andrew Smith did a really good thing making the plunger this sort of individual fingerprint, which I really like. So we learn about the Dalek experiments, and we see the Doctor's plan in action, and the Resistance fighters actually start to get courage. And we do have another brutal Dalek massacre, which leads to one of the best cliffhangers of the story, probably my favourite cliffhanger of Emissary of the Daleks, involving the Supreme Dalek. And this Supreme Dalek definitely doesn't accept failure. Oh boy, it's a brilliant cliffhanger, and it's just brilliant. I love it. Part 4 is very much colonist versus the Daleks. Now this part very much reminds me of the Peter Cushing Dalek invasion of Earth 2150 AD, especially the action sequences. It just has that kind of Peter Cushing Dalek film vibe to it, which I love. I think that's a really great little compliment. I just love that. We have the arrival of 20 Dalek ships. The sound design is just excellent within the story, with the Daleks hoverbouts just moving around and just killing people. We learn more about the hoverbouts, with their technology, which I think is really nice, and it's just a brilliantly tense episode. And throughout this part, you're really wondering who's going to make it out alive, because it just has this great unpredictability and just feels very uncertain whether the Doctor will actually beat the Daleks within this story. So I just absolutely love that. And the ending, it's very explosive, I'll say that. It's just a brilliant ending to this rather wonderful story. Moving on to characters now, the Doctor, Colin Baker, another excellent performance, as I feel like when the Daleks are involved in the story, the person playing the Doctor always brings their A game, and Andrew Smith is no stranger to writing for the Sixth Doctor, and he does a brilliant job, as he really captures that arrogant side of him bragging, but also captures his curious nature, and has electric dialogue between the Daleks, especially the Dalek Supreme. It's absolutely wonderful, and he has a brilliant touching moment at the end. It's just a really great story for Colin Baker, and Colin Baker just shines throughout this story. Peri, Nicola Bryant, now she does another brilliant job. I think this is the first story they recorded for this trilogy, and you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't think that this was the first of the ones they recorded of this trilogy. Just Nicola Bryant just slips into the role effortlessly. We have this great energy to her, and she's just stupidly brave in this story, Peri. And she just really shines in part 2 and 3, especially when the Daleks are interrogating her. And I love that Peri is in fear of the Daleks, but she knows what the Daleks are capable of, so she's sort of warning everybody, look, the Daleks are evil. And I love that Peri's kind of going, look, you need to fight back against the Daleks. So she's kind of spurring on the resistance, which is really nice to see Peri do something a little bit different to what we normally see Peri do. And she does have some great witty dialogue within this story. Moving on to Carmen Rager, the Dalek emissary played by Saskia Reeves. And there are certain moments in this story, this is a little side note, where I thought she sounded a bit like Mary Tam. So if Big Finish wanted to recast Romana 1, which I don't think they want to at the minute, but I think that Saskia Reeves does sound like a bit like Mary Tam at certain moments, but that just might be me. But I absolutely love this character. She's just that stern, authoritative character, not afraid to speak to her mind to the Daleks, so she'll be very defiant to the Daleks, which is brilliant. But she's also a character conflicted by her position and choices, and she's kind of haunted by the past and how the situation's unfolding. So it's a brilliant character, and the way the Supreme Dalek kind of mocks her and taunts her, it's brilliant. It's a wonderful character and a great addition to this story. Aldo, played by William Reeves, a very naive and optimistic character, you know, wanting to start a revolution but has no clue where to begin. A very nice character who has kind of a dilemma within this story involving Carmen Rager. So yeah, a great addition to this story. The Daleks, Nick Briggs. Now Nick Briggs does a cracking job bringing the Daleks to life, especially the Supreme Dalek. And now the Daleks within the story are excellent. They're properly evil, utterly ruthless and incredibly tetchy, with them being very cunning. But the Supreme Dalek is the star of this story and definitely deserves the Planet of the Daleks livery. The Supreme Dalek just has that real sense of grandeur and authority, but I love that he has this sort of grim delight when he's sort of delivering sort of these evil lines. It's absolutely brilliant that he kind of revels in it, which is absolutely wonderful. You know, when people are being when people are dying, you can just sense that he's really enjoying it, which is wonderful. And the way he manipulates Carmen Rager is wonderful, and we even have an appearance of a special weapons Dalek. So Nick Briggs does a great job within this. So what are my overall thoughts on Emissary of the Daleks? So Emissary of the Daleks is a very strong release and is definitely a contender for the best of the main range for 2019. Andrew Smith just paints an incredibly bleak world with strong emotional dilemma at its core, surrounded by Daleks at their most ruthless, and they're just a true powerhouse force within this story and not to be reckoned with. So you're a fan of Dalek Empire, that early Big Finish spin-off, then you're probably going to get a kick out of this because it kind of has a similar tone to it, which is very nice. And like I said, the atmosphere within this story is brilliant, because there is a constant presence of danger, and you know, it just feels like you can trust nobody within this story. The story has some wonderful ideas, like the actual city itself and the sort of the truth speakers, you know, keeping the past alive, which is absolutely wonderful. But the real question is, does this beat Hour of the Cybermen? Now, if you know me, Hour of the Cybermen was my favourite main range release for 2018. So does Emissary of the Daleks beat Hour of the Cybermen? The answer is no. I personally prefer Hour of the Cybermen, just because I feel like Hour of the Cybermen felt incredibly authentic to the 1980s. So if you wanted a slice of 80s Doctor Who on Big Finish, you go to Hour of the Cybermen. On the other hand, Emissary of the Daleks is very much the summer blockbuster release in terms of Big Finish. This is the movie you want to watch in the summer, if that makes sense. It is that sort of, has that type of feel to it, which is great because it has that sort of sense of action. You know, it has great action and it just feels incredibly bleak at times. It's just a great story. So I'm going to give Emissary of the Daleks a 9 out of 10. It is a brilliant release, and like I said, it's definitely a contender for the best main range release for 2019. Whether it does that, who knows? You'll have to wait to see my overview video for that. So yeah, Emissary of the Daleks, brilliant story. Definitely recommend it. I've seen quite a few mixed reviews actually. I've seen a few 6 out of 10s. But personally, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good story, and it was just really refreshing to have a proper evil Dalek story. You know, the Daleks just killing without mercy. It's just brilliant. It is just a brilliant story. So I really do recommend this one because it is a definitely a good story. If you're a fan of Daleks, you're a fan of a Sixth Doctor, then you're going to want to check this out because it is a really good, solid Sixth Doctor story. And Andrew Smith really knows how to write for the main range. He just really understands pacing and how to plot a story. And this is a prime example of how brilliant Andrew Smith is as a writer. So that concludes this review. That's Emissary of the Daleks all done. So thank you very much for watching this review, and I'll see you in my next Big Finish review, whatever that will be. So thank you very much, and goodbye.